Let's go to Rich Hammond, the Rams beat writer for the Orange County Register. Now, Rich, if you were a Rams fan who, for some reason, couldn't watch a game last night, how would you describe the Super Bowl to them?
Confusing. You didn't if that was the only Rams game you had watched all season, you'd be very confused as to why people were talking about them the way that they had all season. That did not look anything like the team that I'd watched all year. Certainly not on offense, and just some of the mistakes that were made, some of the decisions that were made, just did not look like the Rams to me. So if I was a Rams fan who missed that game, I think I'd probably be grateful.
Rich, when you get back home to L.A., the fallout from the game will happen. Where do you think the strongest fallout negatively will be by Rams fans and maybe the media? Sean McVeigh, Jared Goff, both, other?
Probably McVeigh. I think from what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, the biggest question is, what was going on with Todd Gurley? And, I think you have to start with everybody says, well, was he hurt? Maybe they're lying about the injury. Well, all I can tell you is for the past month and a half, since he returned from that knee injury, they've said he's healthy, he's ready to go, he's practicing, he's playing, he's going to be a big part of the game plan. These were things that we heard on a daily basis practically. And then you get to the Super Bowl and he has 10 carries. And I think that's going to be the lingering question or the lingering kind of sting for fans coming out of that game is what happened. It's a game where, you say, okay, is Jared going to be criticized? Yeah, I think he will be. But I think you can look at that one and say, well, he just faced a really good defense and a really good game plan, and they executed that to a T. That was a perfect game plan and perfect execution. So I don't put too much of that on Jared. He's a 24-year-old quarterback. He made some mistakes. But I do look at the fact that they just did not even really try to get that run game going until parts of the second half. And I've been thinking about it since the end of the game, and I still really can't reconcile it.
Another unusual thing about the game last night, we barely saw Defensive Player of the Year, Aaron Donald. And, there were a few games against really good teams where Donald was quiet. What did we learn about how to sort of slow down Aaron Donald in last night's game?
Right. They're double teaming him. They're trying to do a lot of different stuff to slow him down. I still see him getting in the backfield a little bit. Yeah, he didn't get any sacks, and he didn't get any sacks against the Saints either. So, if you look at that, you could say, well, maybe he didn't have quite the impact. But I don't know whether that tells the whole story because, he's filling up two guys, sometimes even three guys if somebody has to come over and chip him after he breaks through. But it did open up some space for a guy like Dante Fowler, who I thought played pretty well coming off the outside. I didn't necessarily know. I've only watched it once. I'd have to go back and look at the tape, but I don't necessarily know that they got a lot of pressure out of Sue and how strong they were coming up the middle. I thought that was going to have to be a pretty big emphasis. But, yeah, in terms of if you're comparing it side by side to some of the other games that Aaron has played where he's putting up 2 or 3 sacks, certainly it's not as flashy. But, that guy is having to fight through about 600 or 700 pounds of offensive linemen on pretty much every play.
Rich Hammond, Orange County Register Rams writer, joining us. If I told you before the season if I told you in August the Rams are going to be in the Super Bowl and they're going to be tied going into the fourth quarter 3-3 with the Patriots, you would have said what?
Yeah, I wouldn't have been surprised, frankly. I thought they'd be there, what I'd be surprised about is if you told me the score was 3-0 or
right,
whatever it was at that point. That would be the part that I'd be surprised about. But to that point, I think they were pretty comfortable. They got the defensive game that they exactly wanted. We're certainly talking about how the offense didn't play to its capabilities, and that's 100% true. But you look at the most optimistic projection for that Rams defense coming into the game, and I think this exceeded it. They played extraordinary on defense. So if you told me that they're going to come into a game and they're going to have held the Patriots to 3 points going into the fourth quarter, I think every Rams fan would have taken that. But obviously the game did not go the way that I thought or that most people thought it would.
Rich, what is the biggest challenge the Rams are facing looking ahead to next season?
Well, they've got some holes to fill, and the one that's kind of grown here over the last couple of days is it seems increasingly unclear whether or not Andrew Whitworth is going to return. He talked about it at the start of the week how he examines things after every offseason. So I don't, maybe we're making a little too much of this particular game because it's the Super Bowl. But for him to kind of come out and say, hey, gosh, I haven't really decided yet. Wow. I mean, that's going to be a big one. I mean, should he decide that, at age 37, after a Super Bowl season that he's ready to go, that's a tremendous hole that they would have to fill at left tackle. So I think that's going to be the first one on the list is determining what's going on with him. And then the defense is going to change a little bit. I mean, Sue's a free agent. Safety LaMarcus Joyner's a free agent. They've got a couple other holes that they might potentially create if they release a guy for salary cap reasons. So the defense will change a little bit, but really a lot of the personnel comes back. I think a lot of the work, guys, will be Sean McVeigh sitting in his office watching a lot of tape and saying, what happened to that offense? And it wasn't just that Super Bowl. I mean, you can even go back to the Detroit game, to the Chicago game, the Philly game, a lot of these late season games, where that Rams offense just wasn't quite what it was early in the season. And I think Sean's going to have to take a long look at that and say, were there any trends there? Was there anything that kind of popped up over and over in those games that needs to be addressed? Because I guarantee you that the Rams 2019 opponents are going to be looking at those same games and trying to spot the same things.
Rich, every other team in the league wanted to hire the next Sean McVay. Zach Taylor is going to the Bengals probably today. If you're a team sitting out there who just hired a new offensive guy in the McVay mold, are you nervous now that maybe that's not going to win a Super Bowl, or is McVay still the guy?
Well, I think you have to ask yourself, why did you hire him? I mean, if people are just, and I think people have been saying this, at least people who know the Rams and know McVay, if you're just looking for a guy who's sat next to Sean McVay in the office and picked his brain, I don't think that's the right thing to do, and I don't think that's the case with any coach. You shouldn't do that. I mean, a lot of what Sean has accomplished in Los Angeles is because of his connections, too. I mean, he has a good game plan, but he also gets guys to buy in. He explains it extraordinarily well. I mean, he's a great teacher of football, not just a guy who draws up plays on the board. A great communicator, a guy who put together a great staff in hiring Wade Phillips. So if the person that you're hiring you think checks off all of those boxes also, and also worked with Sean McVay and maybe learned some stuff from him, football-wise, that's fine. But I think there's a danger in just saying, we're going to go grab guys just because they work with Sean McVay. I don't think that's the right formula. I think you need to make sure you're hiring an all-around football coach in terms of leadership, in terms of game planning, in terms of everything, rather than just looking at, the staff that guy coached on and how many points that they scored.
Rich, thanks a lot for your time. Good luck this offseason. Hopefully the Rams will be back, buddy. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.